maybe you know the name, maybe you don't. Doctor of Death. He's from a little town called Hyde, which, as far as I'm concerned, is in Manchester, but the internet claims that it's in Cheshire. But anyone from England knows Manchester, knows Cheshire. I'm sure Cheshire is just stealing Mancunian areas. But anyway, it's a little market town, Hyde. And I used to go through the bus. I used to go through Hyde on the bus every day. And there's literally like 3 bus stops, and then you're not in Hyde anymore. It's a tiny little market town. And Dr. Harold Shipman had his own practice, and I used to be on the bus outside that every day. Well, not every day, but regularly. And he was in there, and he was a murderer like we've never seen. And what he was doing, at least in the second phase of his life, what he was doing was he was injecting mainly old women and killing them with overdoses. A lot of the time he just seemed to be doing it for pleasure. He seemed to get something from it. And then later on he thought, well, I might as well make some money out of this. And he started falsifying and forging wills. And, you know, they've just crudely left everything to me, by the way, not the family or anything else. And that was his undoing in the end, the arrogance of it. Because he killed a very prominent woman in a very small place. And her daughter was also highly intelligent and determined person and didn't believe it at all. And she was aggressive and gave the police a kick up the arse. And in fact, they investigated him properly, got his computer. And what he was actually doing in many cases, he was typing the death certificate, right, before he killed them, you know, just for convenience. So he'd say, right, Nancy, I'll see you on Tuesday morning. I'll come round to your house. And then on Monday afternoon, he's typing out the death certificate. There's nothing wrong with her. He's typing out the death certificate, you know, heart attack or whatever. And then he's going round to the house the next day. She's letting him in, and he's the good doctor and all that. You know, roll up your sleeve, Nancy. I'm going to give you an injection. Injects her, kills her, leaves her, you know, pulls down the sleeve and all that, and just leaves her in the chair, dead. Some petty theft seems to have occurred. He's stealing the money out of the purses and jewellery and all that kind of shit. And he killed at least 2 people in his office. In his doctor's office, you know. Maybe in the waiting room. Come through. You know, all right, just lie down. I'm going to give you an injection. Now, if it's me, I'm going to say, injection of what? Oh, morphine. I might say, well, all right, just give me a tickle. You know. But these old women, they just trusted him, and he injected them with morphine and killed him. Killed them, I should say. He killed a man as well, who asked too many questions about his son. That's another story. But I mean, if I'm working on reception there and he comes out and says, oh, she's dead, absolutely, you know, every time you leave the building somebody dies, and now they're dying in your office. Nah, but nobody picked up on this, and it's a tiny little place, and he's killing them all the time, right? And in the end, now it seems that Harold Shipman killed 250 people. I've seen much larger numbers, because that doesn't take into account his previous practice that he had in a place called Todmorden in another northern area of England. It's in Yorkshire. Small town again, and he was a pethidine addict there, and that's where he learned his trick. So if you could get more patients on pethidine, you could bulk buy pethidine, and then he could start using the pethidine and having the pethidine himself. And eventually he had to come clean, and he lost, you know, his practice, and he had to start again. Fair enough, he became clean, but there's a lot of, you know, rumour and insinuation that he killed a lot more people while he was in Todmorden. But what he learned from that was to bulk buy. So he started bulk buying morphine. So he was prescribing morphine to people to justify saying, well, look, I've got 20 patients on morphine. I don't want to keep ordering it, so I'm going to bulk buy morphine. So he's using the extra morphine to murder people. And as I say, he killed at least 250 people. And then, you know, walking down the street in this little village, you all right, Tony? You all right, Susan? He just killed somebody in his office. Buying the newspaper, getting some milk. Absolute psycho. So I just want to finish with one that I don't know about, right? This hasn't been solved yet, but it will be. I've been adamant about this for years. There's a serial killer active in Manchester now. I'm not the only one who knows this, the only one who feels this or sees this or thinks this, but the police say there isn't. Right. He's known as the Pusher. It could be a group of people, it could be a trend, it could be some kind of sex thing. There's a condition called aquaphilia, which is where people incorporate water and drowning and all that into their sex games. But they've got twice the national average of people falling into the canal. Right? More than double the number of people who fall into the canal in Birmingham. And Birmingham has more canal than Manchester. And the numbers are just off the charts. There's 85 bodies have been pulled out of the canal since 2007. 85 dead bodies out of one canal. And the 28 unexplained. And the ones that are explained are not explained. He was probably pissed. He's probably on drugs. That's what they call explaining. And of course, the police say they're all accidents, and anyone who says otherwise is stupid. I'll come back to them. The prime suspect now is a guy called Reynard Sinaga, who's Indonesian. He came to Manchester to study, and he got a master's degree and then a PhD. And he was a sex offender, a monumental sex offender. And he was giving this GHD, I think it's called. It's like a knockout rape drug. And he was giving that to men and then violating them. And he pleaded guilty to 159 sex offences in Manchester, including 136 rapes of young men using this drug that he must have been getting in industrial quantities. Maybe he could have been making it himself. I don't know. But, I mean, just that on its own. And he's the prime suspect. A lot of people now are thinking it's this guy that was doing it. And I'm not saying it wasn't him. I don't know if it was him or not. Maybe when they died, he was chucking him in the river. They were, you know, in the canal, I mean. He lived very central. So, I mean, it's possible he was sneaking out with dead bodies and throwing them in the canal. I wouldn't suggest that's a really good idea. And there are, of the ones that he's attacked, there are the police themselves say, well, there's about 70 that we can't account for. Well, you know, there are up to 64 really strong cases of murder in the canal. So maybe he was chucking them in the canal. I don't know. Maybe he was also doing that. Or maybe it's somebody entirely different. But whoever, I think it's somebody entirely different, and I think that it's that person is active now and could even watch this podcast and know that I'm talking about them, feel good about it, pushing people in the canal. But the GMP, the Greater Manchester Police, they say that anybody who doesn't think people are just accidentally falling into the canal and dying all the time is crazy. This is what they always say, you know. And my experience of the GMP, the Greater Manchester Police, is limited. But I did have several interactions with them when I was a teenager, because, you know, you're a teenager, you've got nowhere to go. There's no real activities for you, so you can go to a park, stand on a street corner, find somewhere to spend your time. Some proximity to a shop is generally useful, but you've really got nowhere to go. And a similar situation for the police, so they get bored, you know, and they're driving around in vans all night and they get bored, and so they think, well, let's get out of the van and go and bully these teenagers. And that's what they used to do. They used to just appear on the park and start violating everyone, going in your pockets and throwing your stuff on the floor in the dark, throw it in the grass. That's what they were like back in the 90s. the Greater Manchester Police, they certainly were, you know, and organised crime in Manchester is part of life. I mean, I don't think any of them could find their ass with both hands, much less solve a difficult case involving a serial killer. I just don't think they're prepared for it. I don't think they're trained for it. I think that, you know, they get a uniform and a van and they say, right, go forth, my friends, and bully some kids. Not go and solve complex serial killer crimes, the likes of which you might see on The Wire or some kind of TV series like that. I just don't think they're prepared for it, and they're probably not funded for it either. And so they say, well, it doesn't exist. Not a problem. No, nothing to see here as we keep dragging bodies out of the canal. Nothing to see here, guys. You know, we can't put some fucking railings up, or a sign at least. We just keep pulling the bodies out of the canal. So I'm going to give that a big capital B bullshit to the GMP, to the Greater Manchester Police. Get off your asses, get out there, do some interviews, do your work, find out who's pushing people in this canal, find out why if you can, and ultimately stop the crimes. If you remember what your job is supposed to be. Okay, so I'll just leave you with a couple of the little interesting facts of all these people. Many of them were born around the same time. Peter Sutcliffe, John Wayne Gacy, Harold Shipman, Gary Ridgway, David Berkowitz, Ted Bundy. They were all born around the same period of time, within a few years of each other, just after the war. So I don't know if that's significant to you or not. But let me know in the comments. Do you agree with me? In the mad, bad or broken? Harold Shipman, bad. Just a bad man. Ted Bundy, again, I would say just bad. John Wayne Gacy, just bad as well. Let me know what you think. Mad, bad or broken on the Power Hour. Power to the people.